All right. So as I mentioned, my name is Jennifer Rhodes. I've been with WGU just over 5 years. And before that, I worked at Arizona State University for a number of years, working with students in all different, parts of the career development journey, whether it's first-time freshmen, folks that are career changers, online students, PhD postdocs. So I feel very fortunate to have developed a wealth of experience. And what I really enjoy is helping others to tell their career narratives, to understand their strengths, challenges, possibilities, and be able to articulate that and essentially tell their story to employers. One of the other unique parts of my job that I really enjoy is infusing what we call SEL, social emotional learning, into our career development materials. And this workshop is partially the result of that, because we hear a lot about resiliency in different circles. And this really ties into, how to maintain that resiliency, especially in either a challenging job market or when you're in a space where you're not sure what your next steps might be. We are going to talk about a framework to work more with resiliency here that hopefully will give you some ideas. And I also love that every day is different working with our students. I think the average age of our students is about 37. So folks have a lot of life experience. Every day on the phone is different. Talking to students from all over the country definitely keeps me engaged and on my toes. So I really do appreciate that. And Shantae, I'll just give you a second. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself at all, but I just want to give you that space. So
Oh, hi. Thanks, Jen.
yeah.
I'm Shantae. I'm a career advisor, WGU. I've been here for about 2 years now, a little bit over 2 years. So I really enjoy my previous role. I was a T workforce specialist, and that's just a transitional employment assistant workforce specialist, where I worked for the state of Arkansas for about 4 years, helping participants is what we call them. If it was in a higher ed field, we would refer to them as students. But just working closely with the Department of Human Services to provide career planning, also child care vouchers, job search assistance. So anything in that realm. And I truly enjoy just meeting students, learning more about them, and help aiding them throughout their journey, whether they're, career beginners, career advancers, whatever. I just like meeting you there and just helping you. I really enjoy mock interviews. That's like one of my favorite things to do. So welcome. Thanks for joining today.
All right. Thank you, Shantae, for that introduction. And happy Halloween to folks that are joining us today. If you have any fun plans, I can't believe tomorrow's November 1st already. Um, and I will say this, as we've been approaching the holidays coming up here, it seems like the appointments that I've been having, students are expressing more and more challenges with the job search. I think when it comes to the holiday season, folks realize it's the end of the year. Sometimes there's financial challenges that come with that. And looking at the year ahead, I think a lot of folks get really reflective and try to see what's working and what isn't. So I honestly think this is the perfect time to talk about career resiliency. Once again, I've just noticed that probably the last week or so, the appointments that I've had, students have been facing more and more challenges. So I really hope that this information is helpful for you. Just to kind of give you an overview of the content that we will be talking about today. First, we will provide an overview of when we use this word resiliency, what are we really talking about? There are different dimensions of resiliency to think about when you're, really reflecting on a time when you were resilient, which is a little quick opening exercise we're going to do here. Chances are there are different dimensions that were involved in your ability to be resilient and different factors as well. So we will talk about some of those dimensions of resiliency. And then we will talk about what's called the ground framework of resiliency, which is an acronym that I came up with and drew some material that's really helpful from the resources that we offer students and will hopefully give you some ideas of what you might want to do next to really foster that resiliency. And, if you've displayed some resiliency recently, hopefully be able to maintain that resiliency. We will talk about next steps. And then with whatever time we have at the end, we will talk about Q&A, or we will have Q&A, if you will. So one thing I like to do when I do a workshop is give a 30-day challenge. So when we talk about next steps, I would encourage you to start thinking about, my gosh, 30 days from now is going to be, there is no November 31st. So we're going to be looking at about, let's just shoot for December 1st as a target for a 30-day challenge. And I would encourage you to think about 2 to 3 next steps that you can take based on the information that you learned today to build up your career resiliency or maintain that resiliency. So just be thinking of that. So this concept of resiliency is really your ability to bounce back in the face of adversity or in the face of unplanned events. So when we talk about this, you might notice that some folks, when they're faced with challenging situations, they appear that they bounce back quicker than others. Some, may really shy away or really struggle. And resiliency is that quality that allows people to, bounce back, if you will, when things get really challenging. And for most people, it is a process. When something challenging, unexpected happens, like a layoff, most people, aren't able to bounce back from that right away. They need time to process it. They need time to, feel their emotions and be able to work on a plan. So before we get into this material, I'm encouraging you to think about a time when you demonstrated resiliency. And this could be anything. I mean, especially during COVID, when COVID started, we were all tested in certain ways. So maybe you think of a time when you demonstrated resiliency related to the pandemic. I'd like you to think about what allowed you to be resilient. And this could be things like tapping into a higher power. This could be tapping into support from significant others in your life. This could be the memory of being resilient in the past. So thinking about a time when you were resilient, what do you believe allowed you to be resilient? Once again, it might be other people, it might be tapping into a higher power, memory of being resilient in the past. Maybe participating in more self-care, more exercise. That's something that I did over the pandemic is I worked on a weight loss journey to really help me get back on track. And that was really helpful for me in many different ways. So as we go into this material, just encourage you to remember that time that you were resilient and what was involved, because we are going to, like I mentioned, talk about factors that really are related to resiliency. And when we're talking about that, there are different dimensions of resiliency. There is what we call the physical dimension. And this would be things like, I just talked about exercise. So being able to work on that, physical strength, endurance, flexibility. Maybe you've had a medical procedure done and you have to kind of rebuild that physical strength. That would be an example of the physical dimension of resiliency. Then there's the emotional dimension. And this is, for a lot of people, it can be challenging, especially depending on, things like your family of origin situation, or even generationally. I like to talk about, I'm dating myself a little bit here, but when I was a kid, our parents would say, and our teachers would often say, stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. This is a situation where, we weren't welcomed a lot of times to express our emotions. We were, move on, right? We weren't able to really have that space. So the emotional dimension of resiliency for a lot of people can be challenging because they're not used to even feeling their feelings, naming their feelings and feeling their feelings, processing those, regulating emotions, you know, steering away from things like toxic positivity, which a lot of us might have been taught to practice because, again, we were not encouraged to show emotions that could be perceived as negative. There's the spiritual dimension of resiliency. And this is where you would tap into things like your core values. So when things get really challenging, like we were saying earlier, a higher power could be one way to tap into more resiliency, but it could also be a reminder of what's important to you. This might be things like your family, could be, your educational pursuits, your professional pursuits. Also, flexibility and tolerance of others' values and beliefs. Especially, I would say, in recent times, this is really important to be able to really listen to other people and be able to take in others' opinions without getting defensive or without, jumping into attack mode, if you will. Also, intuition can be part of the spiritual dimension of resiliency. Then we have the mental dimension. Once again, in recent times, this can also be challenging because we have so many demands that are on our attention span. When we have, information that is instantaneous at our fingertips, we have, videos that are, 1 to 2 minutes long. Once again, dating myself, when I was in college, the internet was just becoming a thing, and email was just becoming a thing. And I can remember I used to be able to sit down and read a history textbook of, it might be 100 pages for the next class I would have. And now I look at an email that's 2 paragraphs and I say, my attention span is so different now. I can't believe it. So we have so many demands on our attention. How are we able to manage all of that to be resilient? Showing an optimistic worldview when things get challenging. Once again, when we look at the job search, I hear a lot of students, that I talk to are making career pivots into various areas of IT, cybersecurity. A lot of concerns about the market being oversaturated, concerns about AI and how that's going to impact the job search. Yes, these can be factors, but are you able to still maintain optimism and, you know, the ability to say, hey, I'm going to work this out and I'm going to find employment in this field? Or also, again, incorporating multiple points of view and not sticking to yours and thinking that that is the best way. So all of these come together for what we call true resiliency. And in a nutshell, resiliency is the ability to bounce back in the face of setbacks and unexpected events. It can also show up as someone taking on challenges while still finding meaning in their lives, still being able to tie to their values, responding positively to challenging situations. And again, this doesn't have to be right away. For someone that's facing an expected layoff, for example, or a termination of employment, it's really challenging to truly be positive about that right away because you do need to work through different emotions, process the situation, and come up with a plan. So this also involves rising above that adversity, tapping into hope, endurance, um, you know, also tapping into compassion, tapping into gratitude. These are all really key. And when I spoke about that opening exercise, about factors that might have led you to be resilient in an unexpected event, these could be things like social support, tapping into your network of other people, or confidence that could have been built from the memory of being resilient previously, or that sense of purpose. A good area to tap into to help with resiliency, quite honestly, is to know what your why is. Do you know why you do what you do? And this doesn't just have to be professionally. This could be personally. What is your why in life? It could be to be a parent or a, son or daughter or aunt or, good friend. There are many parts of that, but being able to tap into your purpose. And then also while promoting a growth mindset, being able to see the silver lining in challenges, being able to regulate your emotions when you're feeling particularly challenged, and seeing failure as a form of helpful feedback. You may have heard people say the phrase fail forward. That can be a great reminder, is that when things don't go as planned, what's the lesson there and what can you take with you for you to be a stronger, more resilient professional and person in general? A lot of times you will be asked an interview question that taps into this. They might straight up ask you, tell me about a time when you experienced failure. So it's a good idea to think about this. And what they're really looking for, they do want to see honesty, but they're not looking for someone that's 100% perfect. Sometimes when I do interview prep appointments with folks, I'll have them say, I can't think of a time. Or I will say, tell me about what is one of your areas for improvement or a weakness? And a lot of times they will say, I can't think of one. And we might talk about, well, what about feedback from others? What about performance reviews? And they will also, tell me that wasn't shared with me. So while that may be the case, everyone has areas to improve upon. And if you're not clear on what those are, you might even start asking for feedback from others. Ask for maybe do a 360 evaluation at your workplace to get feedback from others on some good areas for improvement. Because that way you are showing the employer that you are self-aware. You know that you have areas for improvement. And then you are also talking about, like in the past, when things haven't gone well, they want to see that you were able to learn from that and to pick up and take that along to be a stronger professional or person. So that is, again, another really big area of resiliency, especially when we talk about career resiliency. So next, I want to introduce you to the ground framework for resiliency, and we're going to go into more detail with each of these letters. But G stands for gather. This is really going to tap into, do you have your deliverables ready to go when it comes to a job search or professional development? So things like your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile. The next letter R stands for review. And this a lot of times taps into factors that are important to you related to the next step in your career. And as we know, these can evolve over time. What might have been important to you for your very first job could very well have changed from where you are now. I remember my first job, I just wanted a paycheck and I didn't care if it was minimum wage at the time, I think was $5.25 an hour. So, and now I definitely want, job satisfaction. I want to, feel like I'm connecting with my students. I want to feel like I'm making a difference, right? So reviewing, what are those factors that are important to you at this stage in your career? O stands for optimization. And more specifically with this, we're talking about optimizing self-care. What are ways that you like to take care of yourself? This doesn't have to be, things like a spa day. It could be a short nap or what we call a joy break, which I'll get into a little bit more later on here. But it is very important to not lose those self-care practices, especially when you are, really attempting to be resilient and build that up in the career arena. And then the next letter is really important. This U stands for understand. And with this, we're talking about understanding your mindset. Mindset is huge when it comes to building up and maintaining resiliency. We're going to talk more about that when we get to that letter and get into more detail. N stands for network. And this has to do with, what's the strength of your network right now, your professional network? Who could be part of your network? Because as we know, people hire people they know. People hire people that are referred to them. Even up to approximately 80% of the positions that exist are never posted anywhere. So hopefully that really drives home to you, the real importance of having a strong professional network. And then D stands for document. This has to do with writing down your successes, areas for improvement when it comes to your career development process and your strategy, and also just documenting, your process for applying for positions if you're in job search mode. So when we're taking a closer look at all of these letters, so first we have G for gather. So for this, as we said earlier, this is going to really tap into, have you recently updated your resume? If you're in job search mode or you are looking for internships, maybe you're starting to network, it's a really great practice to start to work on that resume for any updates. We also recommend that you go through our resume review process, which basically entails that you review a brief online tutorial that goes over basics of like writing an applicant tracking system friendly document, how to write strong accomplishment statements, what are the different common sections. At the end of that is a self-review form. We ask you to go through and check off each section for understanding. Then we ask you to send the self-review, a Microsoft Word copy of your resume to us by email. And then we do provide a review within typically 2 to 3 business days. We also do cover letters by email. Some people will even send their resume, cover letter, job description to us all in one. And that's a great way for us to check everything and match it up. Make sure that you're highlighting the appropriate items. Have you worked on your LinkedIn profile recently? It's another area to make sure is ready to go. Have you thought about professional references? You usually want to have these ready to go before your job search, and you do want to make sure that you ask permission ahead of time, so that you don't get into an awkward situation where, maybe someone's wanting to check your references and you had someone in mind but didn't officially check with them. So you want to make sure you have that ready to go. But we do, in addition, just going back to our LinkedIn profile, we do have a LinkedIn user guide that can be really helpful when you are working on updating your profile. And when we also talk about gathering, so gathering your skill when it comes to interviewing strategy. One, Shantae mentioned this earlier, that she enjoys helping others to prepare for interviews. This is an excellent service that we offer to our students that honestly I recommend that folks take advantage of, because this will allow you to practice your skills while, being a little bit in the hot seat. So it isn't like you're in high stakes or anything, but it gives you that chance to have some real-time practice. Companies and positions of interest. Are you aware of what your job target is and what those job targets are requiring in terms of skills? Do you know what kind of place you want to work for? If not, on our website, we have divided up our career development process into 7 milestones, which are essentially bite-sized chunks of information that you can access. Milestone 1 can really help you to think about the kind of place you want to work, what's important to you in a position. There are even related assessments you can take, looking at your values, your interests, and your skills. And there are SMART goal worksheets that you can work with to help you to further define the next steps in your career. Do you know what the top job searching resources are for your field? So for example, if you're in IT, one of the sites that I talk a lot about is called DICE. And DICE is all for IT related jobs and internships. Or we have sites for mini or micro remote internships through a site called Parker Dewey. So knowing all of this information is important, knowing what your target is, and then again, information on qualifications for positions of interest. So knowing what are the qualifications they're asking for. If you're wanting to go into project management, PMP certification is very common and a lot of times important for you to become marketable or more marketable in that field. So after gather, we have review. And so this is your chance to sit down and think about, okay, at this stage in my career, what is really important to me in terms of values? The number one value identified by the millennial generation, by the way, is not status, it is not income, it is work-life balance. So thinking about what's important to you the next step in your career. It could be a certain amount of money. It could also be work-life balance. It could be the ability to move up quickly in an organization. So going back to milestone one, there are assessments you can take that help you to start reflecting on all of this. Creating a list of must-haves or preferences for the next step in your career can also be important to career resiliency because this helps you, to know what are you looking for? What is important to you in that next step? For example, I talk to a lot of students that are pursuing a very versatile degree like an MBA or a business management degree. And many times they have a lot of ideas and they have a lot of strengths. But that can be a challenge as well if there's not enough focus in that plan. So sitting down and creating a list of must-haves or preferences can be helpful for that individual to, again, provide them a little bit more focus so that they're not spinning their wheels in too broad of a context, if you will. And then past career goals and achievements. What are you most proud of that you've done in your career and academic life so far? This can help with career resiliency, especially when you face something like a layoff or employment termination, or even when I've heard this a lot where people say, hey, I've sent out 200 applications and I've heard nothing back. Usually when it's a situation like that, by the way, we usually want to take a look at your resume to see if there might be a formatting issue with the applicant tracking software, or maybe your skills are not prominent enough. There could be something going on there. Or other people will say, you know what, I've had 5 interviews and no job offers, and I'm really feeling frustrated. Going back and reflecting on your past achievements and what you're most proud of can help to ground you in your successes. Think about professionals who you admire. Think about supervisors you've had in the past that you've really appreciated. Maybe they've been innovative. Maybe they have been, really quick at getting back to you and resolving issues. Maybe they've been compassionate and kind. Maybe they've really helped you to grow as a person. These reflections can help you to know maybe what kind of traits you still want to work on as well for yourself. And as we said earlier, what is your why? Knowing what your why is and what your top values are can help keep you motivated when you are experiencing challenges in the professional world. Next, we have optimize. And as we said earlier, this is tapping into self-care. So if you are, like, let's say you're on a full-time job search. I talked to a number of students that are full-time students. Sometimes they're also parents. They're trying to balance all of this. So for you folks that are in that situation, it might not be as challenging to keep a regular schedule to kind of keep yourself on target. I talked to another student who is a single professional, and he did an outstanding job still staying motivated when he was unemployed. He had graduated from WGU. He was on a job search, but he didn't slip into having like a couple weeks of not searching and then maybe sleeping in and really getting off a time schedule. He did really good at keeping regular exercise, making sure that he had a pretty regular 9 to 5 schedule even with his job search. So it's important to stay with some of those routines to really help you to feel your best as you're being sometimes stressed with some of these challenges. And then the self-care strategies. Like I said, whatever this looks like for you, it could be, a half-hour walk outside. It could be, a cat nap. It could be what I call a joy break. When I worked at Arizona State, we instituted what we call joy breaks in our daily work lives, if you will. And these were usually like 15 to 20-minute breaks where we would do something that we absolutely love, whether it was watch, a really silly video on TikTok or YouTube or whatever it might be, or, taking some time outside, taking a quick walk to get a coffee, whatever it might be. If you have to build those into your schedule, making sure that you're doing it. Because just another thing that I've noticed is I teach online classes for our Arizona community colleges, and we have a intro to college class where we talk about stress management. And the repeated themes that I see on there in terms of college students of all ages are, I want to lose weight and I want to increase my exercise and I want to stop procrastinating. That second one is a lot harder for folks because there's many things involved in procrastination, but that first one really does involve a lot of self-care. And it's usually the first thing to go when you have many other things that you're trying to balance. But in order to stay healthy and for you to be able to take care of others and to do what you need to do, it's really important to build in that time for exercise, for tapping into spiritual practices, etc. And then also, when you, this is hard, I know for a lot of folks, but when you receive feedback from those that care about you that say, hey, you seem really tired, you seem really stressed out, rather than getting defensive, or what have you, like taking that in and taking a step back and saying, you know what, they're right. I do need to start to find something that I can incorporate to start to take better care of myself. So that is the optimize portion here. And then understand, this is the really big piece. So this taps into your mindset when it comes to career resiliency. So we're going to talk in a moment here about what we call cognitive distortions and negative self-talk. This can particularly come into play during the job search, from everything from when you're reading that job description and you see, and again, I hear this all the time from students as well, where especially our folks making career pivots that say, how am I supposed to break into IT when it says I need to have 2 to 3 years of experience for an entry level position? Yes, that's frustrating, right? Because a lot of students are like, well, how do I get that? Yes, you can work toward internships to help get you that experience. Yes, networking is a big part of that. But if you start to say to yourself, I'm never going to break into this field because I repeatedly see these requirements, or they want someone with, you know, 15 different items on the job description, and they are only paying 42,000 a year. This is frustrating. It may indeed be frustrating, and you may indeed need to work through some of these emotions, and it's not always fair. But to build up resiliency, it is important to work through cognitive distortions, work through how you're feeling, and really process that to try to avoid the negativity from taking over long term. Because that can come out in interviews and that can honestly sabotage your job search and your professional development. Knowing questions to ask for feedback. So when you have a performance review with your supervisor, and I've seen this and I've heard other people say this, that sometimes, supervisors will breeze right through those performance reviews and they'll say, you're doing an awesome job, great, wonderful, and then that's it. But don't be afraid to ask for feedback, for improvement, and see if you're able to obtain some of that, because that will also help you to be a better professional. If you're not receiving it from your supervisor, maybe you can ask for feedback from your colleagues, from customers, etc., so that you can be more mindful of, what are some of the other perceptions there. Questions to ask yourself to maintain perspective. Maybe again, you've experienced a layoff. I worked with a student that unfortunately had, goodness, I think it was 3 of those in a row in about 2 years. And it was pretty much out of his control, and he started to take it in and take it really personally. And it's understandable that you might struggle with that, but again, it's working through those emotions and understanding this was not about your performance. It was about the state of the company's financial situation. So making sure that you're checking in, and again, this is going to get into cognitive distortions that we're going to talk about, because that is huge. And then ways to promote positive view during times of uncertainty. This is really challenging when you're in the moment, especially when you, like, let's say your company is talking about layoffs, and you don't know who and you don't know when. How do you maintain calm and as much positivity as possible when something like that is happening? Sometimes it takes you, maybe engaging in things that didn't turn out to be really healthy for you in the beginning, where, the rumor mill starts. And then you realize, wow, okay, this isn't helping anything. I'm going to wait until I have more information before I react, maybe is one message that you tell yourself. So when talking about this understanding in the mindset, cognitive distortions are really important to take a look at and to identify to see if you are subscribing to some of these. And honestly, the best way to do this is that if you are feeling defeated in the job search, or you're experiencing, a big, honestly, traumatic event when it comes to this could be your personal life, this could be your professional life. Writing down your automatic thoughts is the first step to being able to identify cognitive distortions. So if you've never done this before, it can be very powerful. Let's say, again, you are on a job search and you've applied for, uh, 50 positions. You've heard back from 3, you've had 1 interview and you didn't get the job. So you might be writing down things like, no one's ever going to hire me. I will never be considered competent. No one ever gets a job in this field. So terms like never, no one ever, these are evidence of cognitive distortions. So first of all, we have this all or nothing thinking. This is known as black or white or polarized thinking. So this is where people usually look at situations as, either all good or all bad, either someone's a success or a failure. So it is very polarizing, if you will. There is the overgeneralization, where you view a negative event as a never-ending pattern. So just in that example that I gave about, I'll never find a job, I will always be incompetent. The words always or never frequently appear in overgeneralizations. So it's important to, again, write these down and identify them so that you can catch your thought patterns early. There are ways to talk back to these cognitive distortions, which can be huge in building up resiliency. Then there's the mental filter. This is the opposite of overgeneralization, but with the same negative outcome. Instead of taking one small event and generalizing it inappropriately, the mental filter takes one small event and focuses on it exclusively, filtering out anything else. So in this, like maybe your relationship with your significant other, maybe an individual focuses on all the negative or hurtful things that partner has said or done in their relationship, but filters out all the kind and thoughtful things the partner does. This thinking contributes to feelings of negativity about the partner and the relationship. Or again, if it's related to the job search, it can, you know, foster negativity about the job search, and that can even come out in the interview process and such. There is discounting the positives. If you work with customers or clients, you might have 99, like let's say you get surveys on your performance, you might have 99% positive, and then you have one person that says, this person didn't help me at all. If you're focusing on that one person, that is an example of discounting all those positives that you had. And again, if you're making a career pivot, and we said earlier about thinking and notating what you're most proud of from your past history, academic and work history. Maybe you're looking at a layoff, but you had a 15-year successful career in property management. Looking back, remembering those positives is really important when building up resiliency. Or jumping to conclusions. Maybe, I know I'm guilty of this sometimes, the mind reading. You think someone is going to react in a particular way, you believe someone is thinking things that they aren't. Maybe someone has a certain look on their face, or maybe your supervisor sends you an email and it's very short. It's like 3 words, and you automatically think that you've done something wrong or they're upset with you. You're like, I know this person's mad at me, when there's really no evidence for that. Or fortune telling. You predict things will turn out badly. You might say, well, the last interview went poorly, so this one's going to be even worse. That is a cognitive distortion. Magnification or minimization. You tend to blow things way out of proportion or shrink their importance. So with this, again, it's almost like taking that filter and taking the negative events and blowing those up larger, and then the positive events don't matter in this case. Or emotional reasoning. I feel like this isn't going to go well, so it won't. I feel like I'm never going to get a job. I feel incompetent, so I must be. That's a huge emotional reasoning is a huge cognitive distortion. Or any shoulders out there. I should never make a mistake. I should always be prepared. I must always appear to be competent in front of the team that I lead. This is oftentimes not realistic. Or labeling. I made a mistake. I'm an idiot. I'm incompetent. It's another big cognitive distortion. Or personalization and blame. You blame yourself for something that wasn't entirely your fault. So maybe you're working on a team and the team presented a business proposal and you didn't get the grant that you were hoping for. And you say, well, that's because I did terribly on my part. When honestly, it was a team effort. Or this can go the other way when something negative happens and maybe you did have a part in it and you say, well, so and so didn't do their part, so that's why we all failed. Honestly, you have to look at the situation holistically to see what's really going on. Then these are questions to ask to challenge cognitive distortions. How do I know if this thought is truly accurate? When you label yourself as incompetent, what's the evidence for that? Maybe you say, okay, I made a big mistake. Could that be evidence that you're incompetent? Possibly, but let's look at the other part of that. Look at all of the other things that you've done well recently. How can I test my assumptions and beliefs to find out if they're accurate? A good practice, by the way, for career resiliency, if you don't have this person in your life now, is to work on building relationships and maybe finding a mentor outside of your current place of employment that you can talk to about your feelings when things don't go well. Because a lot of times they can give you a more accurate picture of what is happening. And that relates to the next point too. Do you have a trusted friend? Someone that knows you really well that you can talk these thoughts out with? And maybe they can help you point out blind spots in the situation. Or this next one is really good. Is this thought helpful? I know in my own case, when I have something that I have to finish, like I even have an article that I have to finish by tonight, I will sit there and say, I have to get this done and I better get started now. I'm so behind. I can't believe I let myself get this behind. That can give some people a little bit of motivation, kind of lighting a fire under themselves, if you will. But you keep doing that and it can get draining to hear those, I should, I must, I can't believe I did this. Over time, that usually is not a helpful approach. Are there other ways I can think about this situation or myself? Or am I blaming myself unnecessarily? One point, another that's really important, is this really in my control? When we talk about resiliency in general, identifying what you can control and what is out of your control is extremely important. Can you control, for example, if you're in entering the IT field, can you control that it is very competitive in many cases? Can you control the layoffs? Can you control AI? No. But what you can control is your resume, your interviewing skills, your networking ability. All of those pieces are definitely under your control. Am I making assumptions? Or what would I say to a friend in this situation? You probably wouldn't call your friend stupid or incompetent if they made a mistake, right? Can you look for shades of gray? Can it be that you made a mistake and can you hold space for I am competent as well? Kind of in the middle. Am I assuming the worst? Am I using those absolute terms like always or never? That's a huge key to see if you are participating in cognitive distortions. Or am I making this personal when it really isn't? Are there other factors involved? So also under the understanding letter here, questions you can ask for feedback and perspective to gain more understanding. Is there something in my past performance for which I am unsatisfied? So maybe others haven't told you that you need to work on it, but maybe you don't feel confident with your public speaking skills, for example. Could that be something that you could work on? Or the question, how can I do things better next time, instead of I'm a failure, or I can't believe I made that huge mistake, I'm so stupid. How can I do things better next time is a much more helpful question. Or what steps can I take to avoid repeating that same mistake? Or, especially again, if you're making a career pivot, what attributes do I need to improve to be successful? If you're going from healthcare to tech, you probably will need to have much more knowledge of certifications, um, build up your knowledge base. A lot of times that starts with, entry level positions like help desk system support. Then be able to build your knowledge base to say up to cybersecurity if that's an area you like. Is there someone I can reach out to for advice or support? Knowing that we even here in career and professional development could be a source of support. If you're not knowing what your career target is, if you're having trouble coming up with a networking strategy, you're concerned about your interviewing, these are all things that we can help with. And tapping into gratitude can be huge for helping with resiliency. So taking a step back, maybe even, I've heard a lot of folks say that they've tried a gratitude journal, but have you tried it for employment or for your academic pursuits? Writing down 3 things that you are grateful for every day for the job that you have, related to the job that you have, related to your academic pursuit, for example. That can help to build gratitude and resiliency. Um, Gratitude's contagious. So saying thank you to people in the service industry. For some people that's routine, for some it's not, but it can definitely build, again, resiliency and appreciation. Taking time to actually write an old-fashioned letter, if you will, of gratitude to someone, or a note. Once again, gratitude is contagious. That can help folks to build up resiliency, especially in difficult times. Then we go to the N letter of the ground framework, and this has to do with the strength of your professional network. So I oftentimes ask students, do you know anyone in your field of interest outside of your current place of employment? And a lot of times I might get the answer, I know one person, or I know a few people. It's really important, again, to have a strong network of professionals. And your network could be anybody, friends, family, part of us in career and professional development could possibly be part of that team. You can participate in professional associations to broaden your network. Use our feature called the LinkedIn Alumni Tool, which lets you look at career outcomes of other WGU students and grads to tap into other folks that might be able to assist you. Maybe even set up informational interviews with these folks to learn more about the field, get your name out there. There are also clubs that are, related to different disciplines here at WGU that you could join, like the cybersecurity club. I'm just thinking IT related right now. There's a brand new Women in Cybersecurity Club, which is an amazing to have. We have the Black Student Association for MBA. It's another great group. We also have different organizations in different cities might have what are called job clubs. These are offered through different places that you can access. Places like your area government assisted job searching organizations. Sometimes they have job clubs where you can interact with other peers, and these are free, and they can help you kind of help each other through the job search process. So last is document. So this is where you want to do everything from write down, once you interview, especially write down what went well. Actually pause and write down or type out what went well. This can help to build positivity and resiliency, especially when it comes to interviewing. Keeping a kudos file. This is where it could be electronic, it could be in paper, where you keep positive messages from supervisors, colleagues, clients, customers. when you're feeling challenged, this could be a really great time to look at some of that information. As we said earlier, keeping a gratitude journal. It could be work related, academic related, or just in general life related. That can build up resiliency because it helps you pause and helps you to really feel good about what you currently have. Having a system for tracking your job applications. There are many out there. The most important thing is to at least have a spreadsheet, document when you applied, what you applied for, even start to save the actual job descriptions, because a lot of times they will disappear from the sites that you utilized once the job closes. So it's good to have a system down. If you do informational interviews with other professionals, write down what your perceptions are. Do you feel more inspired after talking to that person? Are you questioning your path? What are some of your impressions? Positive affirmations can help to build up resiliency. Things like reminding yourself, I am a competent, trainable professional. I put my heart into everything that I do. Those kinds of things can actually rewire your brain the more that you talk about them and the more you reinforce them. Writing down personal goals, long and short term, using on our website under milestone 1, we have our SMART goal framework that you can work with. And having a plan B. So if you have a certain idea of what job you want to go into, what are you going to do if that doesn't work out? Maybe giving yourself a certain time frame, and then having what else can you do if things don't work out the way that you would like them to. So in summary, the ground framework for career resiliency is gathering those materials, making sure they're ready to go, essentially, reviewing what's important to you, what are those must-haves for the next step in your career, what are your values, optimizing self-care, understanding your mindset, working with those cognitive distortions, networking, continuing to build up that network, and then documenting everything from what you're grateful for to what happened in interviews to your job applications. And then I did just want to share this as we're coming to a conclusion here, grounding through mindfulness. There's a little recipe for a mindful week. A lot of times if we are able to tap into the present moment, and that's what this GROUND acronym was built on, and we tie it into resiliency. If we're able to be in the present moment, we are able to handle whatever comes our way. So you'll see here for a mindful week, teaspoon of gratitude, generous helping of deep breaths, very important, sprinkle of quiet moments, drizzle of that self-compassion, then add a teaspoon of gratitude to the end of each day, celebrate both your big and small wins, sprinkle some quiet moments throughout the week, combine those with generous servings of deep breaths, especially when we're feeling challenged. Finally, add a drizzle of self-compassion to all your challenges and reflect on how you can best help yourself. So your next steps, Shantae put a couple of links in the chat there, so thank you for that, for some of our resources. What I encourage you to do is, again, 30-day challenge, 30 days from now, we're looking at about December 1st. 3 next steps that you're willing to take based on the information that you learned. Whether you're going to make an appointment with us in career and professional development to talk about your career strategy, or you're going to practice your interview skills, or you're going to start being mindful of your cognitive distortions, writing down your automatic thoughts, challenging those, or you're going to incorporate some method of self-care because you notice you've gotten away from that, or you're going to tap into, hey, what are my must-haves for the next step in my career? So write down 3 next steps that stood out to you. December 1st is a target date. Maybe you can even write down an accountability buddy that you can check in with. And hopefully that will help you engage in the material right away that we talked about. And then this slide just gives you kind of a snapshot of all the different services we offer. We do resume, cover letter, LinkedIn profiles, all primarily by email. We also do appointments on everything from, what are the top resources to use to find opportunity, interview preparation, how do I put together a networking strategy, salary negotiation. These are all common topics. And then we do offer a lot of our programming through Handshake. Our jobs and internships that reflect our partnerships with employers are found through Handshake. And then also we have employer information sessions that are hosted there too. So this last page shows you a link to our website. where you can also set up an appointment with us if you would like. There is a link for appointments. We do have a callback service. So you can either, schedule an appointment with us. We do book up sometimes a little ways out. If you need more immediate assistance, you can always call this number, leave a message, and we will return your call within 24 business hours. We have an active Facebook page. We also have a LinkedIn group that we encourage you to join as well. So at this point, I know we are at time, so I just want to pause here and see if there are any questions, feedback you want to provide. Definitely would like to hear from you. It looks like, again, we have a very small group today, but if you do have any questions or comments, please do feel free to put those in the chat. Regina, thank you. I hope this was helpful for you and gave you some things to think about. It's kind of, I think this session's almost a little bit of a check-in on all parts of your career strategy. So, for some folks, it helps them realize, okay, well, my resume is pretty good, but maybe I should start working on, the interviewing, or maybe I really do need to think about my why so that I can stay engaged, or maybe I need to research a little more on what I can do with my degree so I have a clearer path there. But yeah, hopefully this will give you some things to think about, and please let us know if we can be of assistance in the future. All right, and thank you, Shantae. I appreciate your assistance. And if there are no further questions, I will let you all get back to your day. Once again, happy Halloweens. Please stay safe out there. I will be sending out a copy of this recording in the PowerPoint. Usually it's probably going to be early next week that you'll have access to that just to go back and review. I know there can be a lot of points in the material, so we'll make sure you get that. And yeah, let us know if we can help you in the future. Take care.